welcome back. Today I am doing something extremely personal. Here are my own designs, my own jewelry that I made from vintage elements that is now vintage. These designs have not seen the light of day for 25 years. So this is what I made a long time ago, and it's a really fun look back for me. Here is everything that I pulled. This is not everything that I made that I still have, but it's a good sampling, and it was the things that I could find. So luckily it is a good sampling, and there's two pieces here that are even earlier that are from my teenage years. And I made earrings with my friend Danielle. We went to the jewelry district and we found a store that had all modern findings, and then right behind the counter they had one drawer of antique Venetian glass beads, and so we bought those and we made earrings out of them with Swarovski crystals, and then we got a big artist portfolio, you know, the big black cases, and we hung everything. We hung all the earrings across them, and we stood in front of the subway in Queens, across the street from the mall, these two teenage girls, and we sold the earrings that we made. And I had 3 pairs. 2 of you have bought these earrings, and this is the only pair that I have left. So it's a nice little time capsule. That is the oldest thing. You guys have heard me talk about the Haskell that I took apart. So I still have a pair of Haskell pearl earrings that I made. Wait until you see. It's such a like nothing pair of earrings, but I took apart this Haskell necklace. And if you want to check out the video on the value of Haskell and what to look for to find Haskell, I'll put the card to that right up here. That is definitely worth watching. If you're a collector, if you consider yourself a collector, you have to understand Haskell, how to find it and how to evaluate it. So here is everything. It's just what I could find. It's kind of laid out. This is so fun for me because you can actually see the materials that I used, that I repeated, you know, things that I bought, and then I figured out different ways to use them in different pieces of jewelry. So it's very exciting for me. I'm going to start with the oldest first. I was very into interchangeable jewelry. I had this idea that I didn't think people should spend money on clasps over and over again, so I made this whole concept line of jewelry necklaces with just spring rings, and then you could have different clasps with them, different kinds of, you know, levels. Like you could have stone encrusted clasps or plain clasps or whatever. That was the idea anyway. And also I did it for pins even back then. So this is the first thing I want to show you. I made these when I was a teenager. These are antique Venetian wedding glass teardrops and faux pearls, maybe from the Haskell necklace. It looks like they could have been. And some little Swarovski bicones, and they're still lovely. And I would still wear these today, but I made these probably around the same time, like maybe 16 or 17. So that was my first design foray. And you can see I just have it on these little gold-filled kidney wires. I bought a gross of these, and I still have some lying around decades later. The next pair of earrings, oh, I'll show you the Haskells. Okay, so these are Haskell pearls that I put on the kidney wires with little gold-filled balls. And I made these around the same time period. Very pretty. Absolutely not worth taking apart a Haskell necklace for these, but that's what I did. And then these little beads, these came from an antique purse. I had a cut steel purse that I had found that was falling apart. So I bought that for the cut steel beads. Some of them were gold toned, some of them were silver toned, some of them were bronze. And I still have that today too, pretty much intact to take the beads off it when I need to. I have this idea that I'm going to be making an Art Deco shawl with them someday. I have one that was never, that the beads were never added to. That's 100 years old. It's quite remarkable. So those are the Haskells. The next thing that I did was another pair of earrings. And these are more Venetian glass with pearls. And this is when I got the idea of doing interchangeable. You see how they're on little, it's on a little separate spring ring there. So you could take this little, because this is a gold wire. I'm pretty sure I moved up to 14 karat gold for these from the look of it. So these are still gorgeous today, and these you could turn so that they could be more Venetian glass on this side, more pearl, still lovely. I mean, I think these are beautiful just because look at those beads, look at them. And then I had the idea that I could make all these little interchangeable beads. See, here's some purple cat eye with just a crimp bead, right? So that could come off, and then I have gold. I mean, I have orange here. See this? Same idea with a little crimp bead. So you could make these interchangeable things and mix and match them on the wires. I even went so far and bought some lab opals, some Gilson opals. These are lovely. Look at how pretty those are. And I had a bunch of these, so I also made a chain out of them. But you see the little loop? So I was very careful to make a very neat loop, and then I could wear these tiny earrings as a young girl, or I could mix and match and add other things to it. So that was the oldest group. Then I got more into my early 20s, and the first beading project I made that was any kind of complication was this. I did this by hand, not with any loom or anything that existed. I just did it with a needle and a thread. And it's just this pretty basic kind of pattern where I went in and out of the beads with the needles, every, 6 or 7 of them. And then I went back in and I made these squares. And I made this to measure for my neck. I put a little spring ring here so that I could hang things from it in the center. I was already in that interchangeable mode. And I even put this stone in here. I bought this clasp empty, and I found a stone that kind of fit and put it in there. But I was probably, I want to say 23 or 24 when I made this. And even then, I was thinking about adding pins or pendants. I have this pansy here. This came much later with other things that I designed. But this would work very well. I mean, it's an antique pansy. It's from Kremens. This was a tremendous source of creativity for me. It was figuring out all the different ways I could make one thing be worn. See how perfect that would be? And you could add it. I have the spring ring right there. And this is just little, seed beads from the craft store. And then I moved on to some more. Oh, this is the chain that I made. I made this chain. I took apart a gold chain and added gold wire wrapping to it, and I added the opals, and I didn't have enough opals, so I had jade and a broken bracelet. So I did jade on the 2 sides with the opals in the center, and I made this chain just from broken bits and bobs that I had lying around. At the time, I was so interested in exploring what I could do with spring rings and how to interchange it with different types of jewelry. This was my next inspiration. This is a gray pearl post that I got from my grandmother, and the same gold chain that I hung real Tahitian South Sea pearls from, silver gray. And these come completely off this, just with the little spring ring. You see that? Here, there's the post right there. And then this is basically what you would call a jacket. But for me, I was really exploring different ways to use the materials that I had and the jewelry that I had. And I wore these every day for several years in my mid-20s. I still absolutely love them to this day. And these could be put together as a pendant and, hung from a pin and things like that. So still incredibly versatile. Then I moved on to exploring strands of things individually knotted. And I made some things that were more valuable. I was very inspired by this Walter Lampel padlock that was kind of scruffy. And I had this silver padlock. So I made these strands of pearls. This is so wonderful. This might have come later. I think this was later, going by the aesthetic. But these are all faceted pearls that I strung on red silk cord. And this And then this you can completely take apart and disassemble and wear different ways. These strands of pearls are all individually on just spring ring clasps. And I designed them to go together so that it would be a kind of color blocking. Like this is all the smaller faceted kind of Tahitian black coloring. And then this is the longer ones. Oh, and these are black spinel, I believe, or black, no, these are black tourmaline. That's right, because I had a whole bunch of tourmaline. So this is black tourmaline. And then I made a little tassel that went with it as well. So see that? And I hung that from one of the padlocks. So this is what it looks like on. And I designed it so that everything would just lay perfectly. It's all vintage elements and faceted real pearls that I found. I had no idea they would become so interesting. You know, I really only saw them for that time period. There you go. That's pretty much how it looked on any day. You can see the old enameling and the tassel and the padlock, and these pearls lay perfectly together. And I designed this when I was in my 20s. And then I moved on to other materials with the spring ring clasps. Jewelry that I've designed over the years has been sold with these. These are the only ones I have. You can see they're graduated. So I had in mind that I would make the strands. So I got some rubies, these little tiny faceted rubies, and I strung these myself with the spring rings. And then this is a bit, oh, and this is an extender. I was wondering whatever happened to this. This is a little gold kind of, it turns any pendant into like an extender. You know what I mean? Something that could be hung over beads without having to go through a small bail, right? So you can add any pendant or any pin to this. It's like a clippable bail. So I made this, and then I added, this was a bit of a 14 karat gold bracelet that broke, so I added that as an extender at one point when I wore this. And as you can see, that comes completely off because it clips off. So this was meant to be used over and over again. And the way that this worked was you could use it with one of these padlocks, with or without the extender. I like, to this day, I still like all the little odd elements of things that make everything look very put together. So this is what it looks like, say, with the padlock and the rubies. Or you could use a pin. I have this pin here. This I bought when I was in my mid-20s, and this inspired some of the other strands. Look at this. It's like a little quail with a blue topaz and some other precious. You could close the strand with, like this. You see that? Or you could take a pendant, like just a pendant with no, that's not a pin, with no closure, and you could add it to the extender. You see, or from this. You see how this all starts to come together? And I got this pendant in Egypt. And the next thing I'm going to show you is an old strand. This is a strand that I made and individually knotted in between each bead, but this was the oldest turquoise that they had in this one store that I went to. It was a jewelry store outside of Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and they didn't think that this was worth very much because it was on an old brass clasp, and they had much nicer turquoise, and this was old, and they had all modern jewelry. So I convinced them to sell it to me. It was for display purposes behind their counter once again. So there's a little spring ring idea, and you can see how pretty. I still love this. This is turquoise from Egypt. And what I did with this was I found this pin specifically for these beads. So I'm going to show you. If you watch the channel and you've been around a while, I know you've seen me do this, but this is sort of the spark or the inception. you know, it was my own design ideas that led me to being so creative with pins now when I'm showing you how to wear vintage jewelry. And I do have a video actually on how to wear vintage jewelry and accessories. And I'll put the card to that up here. So here it is closed. See, that's how it works. And then when you put it on, it becomes the pendant or the centerpiece. Isn't that beautiful? And then if I wanted to, I could take this strand and add to this, or I could take the pearls and add to it. You see how everything starts working together, and it's very personal, and every day it's different. Even with just the strands that I have here today, I also did an angel skin coral, and I often wore this angel skin coral and the turquoise together because I loved the size of the beads together. I thought it was really pretty. Okay, there it is. Oops. Okay, there it is, completely strung together. This is how I often wore them, with the Egyptian turquoise and the angel skin coral and the little multicolor little quail. And I'll show you what it looks like on the neck. There it is right there. See how pretty that is? And then imagine like this strand of rubies with the black pearls, right, with the red thread. I designed everything so that you could always be adding to your collection. It's kind of an example of all the different layering things that I did. And I also went even further. I started to think about using lariats and knotting things, and this I put together sometime in my 30s, and here it still sits. This is a Sagen pendant of a mermaid with peridot, and these are all multicolor aquamarines, and they are different lengths. So I had the two of them together, and then there's double spring rings on this one. So I had some idea of being able to layer and do a lariat, and then here's another one here. So I had all these different strands, and this is gem quality aquamarine. You can see how beautiful it looks with this pendant. And then I had tourmaline, and I did the same thing with the tourmaline, and this is the light color tourmaline, and this is one of my favorite pendants in the whole world. I found this. This is antique. It's this little boy and girl hand-painted kissing on celluloid, right, or early plastic. And look how beautiful these are together. And this is another one of those extender clasps. So look how beautiful this is. Oh, and here I'm using a lingerie pin, and I have a bunch of these still too. And here's the little cut steel beads from the purse. So you can see I'm reusing my materials. And I do get more intricate, don't worry. I know right now it just looks like strands, but I start to evolve very, very soon. So there it is, with just the multicolor tourmaline and this wonderful pendant. You can see how I was inspired. And then, because I had the tourmalines, I sorted them all out, and I did this strand with the darker colors. So this was to serve with darker pendants. And I have still some of these. They're also wonderful. This is my favorite. The one I'll always keep is this one, but I do have this one as well. And I have two more. And these were serving as inspiration for some of the other things. Look at this one and this one. Isn't that wonderful? And look at the back of them. These are amazing. I've had them since I was in my 20s, so that's part of the reason why they're in the condition that they're in. But I was very inspired, and I did the darker tourmalines, as you can see. And then I moved on to more advanced, and I decided that I wanted to experiment with shapes. So I bought these. These have faded over time. These are the cut steel beads from the purse and these sort of faceted briolets. And these used to be a darker blue. I thought they were blue topaz when I bought them, but look how lovely that is. And it has the same system. You know, it has these kind of rings so that you can close it with pins, you can close it with pendants on the clips. The padlock, you know, let's not forget the padlock, right? I've worn it that way in my 20s. And then I started thinking about different shapes, and I made this. This, I believe, is tanzanite or iolite and rose quartz, again with the little beads in between. But I found this clasp. eBay was very new. This was one of the first things I found on eBay. And this is a clasp that I found, a pansy, that inspired me to put these colors together. But I designed this so that you could reuse, I could reuse this clasp over and over with the other strands. Here it is here. It's just a little kind of hook, almost like a belt buckle. See the back there? And then these are little spinel covered sterling clips that came off a pair of earrings that were day and night earrings. So those earrings had removable drops, and I decided I was going to use these for my creations. And that makes this kind of buckle clasp work with any other of the strands that I made. And look how beautiful this is. And it lays flat, and you can also wear it. Isn't it wonderful? And it even has a little opalite on it. So beautiful. And I mean, it is possible that if I did do commission work, if you had any of your own elements, that I could create that for you. I also then got into a new idea. Now this is the same faceted pearls from my source. See, look at these. These are white, but these are faceted pearls, and this is reconstituted turquoise. And I just hand strung these myself, nothing fancy, just with the technique that you use to string pearls. And then I added jump rings in different places along the length of this, so that I could be creative and clip the clasp together here, but then also hang things from it, or clip it in different places and have different tassels and things like that. And that worked very well. And also I used pins for it. So what I did was I would say have my my pansy clasp. No, let's say, okay, this is a David Yurman heart that came much later, but I'll just use it for show. So I would put the clasp, in this case this pin, through the ends, and you can see I had the foresight to design the smaller beads on the ends, right? And then once that was closed, this is a long one. So once that was closed, the idea was that I had the ability with the jump ring here, the extra jump rings, to add other things, so that if I doubled it over, I could then pin through the jump ring on the side here, or pin it to the jacket or whatever I was wearing, which is actually what Chanel did. And I had no idea when I designed this, but that was the direction that I was going in. And you can see, again, the pattern is not easy to pick out. I used a lot of odd numbers radiating from the center, and to this day, it still looks beautiful. It still works. This was a canatel pin that I turned into the most intricate necklace that I made. This is a copy of a Haskell that I saw that I did not get, but someone I knew did get it, and I was so remorseful. So I made this with the base of the flower becoming each link. So if you open it up from the center, you can see it makes a flower shape. Each one of these comes out from each leaf of the pin. And then I added a tassel in the center. And I was so happy that I put it on a pin because it turns out the Haskell necklace was all faux pearls. And these are real pearls, so it became very heavy with the crystals. And I did use a different padlock on this. This is a fancier padlock with a cabochon garnet. But I'll put this on the neck so you can get an idea. Or actually, I'll just hold it up. So there it is. That's my design. And then, because it's so heavy, it's very nice to have the convenience to actually be able to pin it so that it lays properly and does the waterfall, you know, and it is also good if it's like a lower neckline that you want to hold up, you know, but that's the necklace. Let me put it on this. So I made this, and these are all the surrounding tassels and everything. And I have another one. I got this one shortly after that in my mid-20s, and I've been holding on to it ever since. This looks, it's a silver canetelle with lots of flowers, and the idea was to make smaller ones for each flower with the faux pearls so it wouldn't be too heavy. That's the back of it. And then here's the front. The front, you see the double layers of petals. So I thought that that would be perfect to use as the next creation. And I just never did it. And now, of course, I know that this is Victorian canetelle, and it's quite remarkable as it is. But that served as the inspiration. And then I'm going to go back to the more simple ones. Oh, I'll show you the latest thing I did. I made this when I was 38. This was the last thing that I pulled. This came to me in a dream. I dreamt that I met my mother and that we went back to where she lived, and it was this magical place, and she was wearing this. It was a gold chain that looked like this with gold feathers on the ends. And so I found these. These are actually bookmarks. These are gold-plated bookmarks. They are gold-plated. And this was a chain that I had. And I made this because I saw my mother wearing it in a dream. And I think it is still so beautiful. So that's the last thing I made, or the most recent thing I made. Probably not the last thing I made because it was when I was 37 or 38, but the most recent thing that I will show you today. And then there's a few more things. Emerald cut citrines. I bought these and I put them together with bullion, and there's the spring rings, and then also here's more of that bracelet with the little, this is just a gold bail that I bought that I found worked well, and here's the other side of it, right? So that comes off as well. So these were all meant to be adjustable lengths and adjustable the way that you wore them, and these are wonderful faceted gemstones. So let me know what your favorite combination is, or if there's a combination you'd like to see that I haven't gotten to. Here's what it looks like if you hang it so that the pendant, so that the heart becomes an element on the side, which is very cool, something like that. But here's generally how I wore it, just like that. And then there's the pendant in the back. So it works really well. And if there's any combination that you want to see or anything like that, I have a special Galaxy drop coming up the third Friday and the fourth Fridays of this month. And I think it'll be fun to show it sort of by request, and it's a special drop with a bigger discount for everything that's in the store. And the number for my Galaxy channel is 973-949-0785. That's 973-949-0785. So text connect to that and you'll get alerts when I go live on Galaxy. And that's exciting because it's going to be a bigger discount. And also I thought it would just be fun to do a chat and kind of continue this, you know, sort of by request, right? So thank you everyone for watching. See you next time.